Okay, I have a written journal for you. It is the second one from 7/16, so I'm getting closer to caught up, and the Mayan day is to wind. All right, now, while in general, I don't like to recommend videos that use a mechanical voice. The one I'm going to link to here is worthy of a listen. Now, I'm not saying I totally buy into it. I'm just saying it's pretty interesting as far as current DNA mutations are concerned. This covers one small part of that, but an important one since carbon-7 is so important to 3D life in this universe. And I'm going to add in here too, more than just our DNA is being restructured. The Schumann resonance is changing, and even the decay rate of certain substances that has long been thought steady and solid is changing. And I think a lot that's been discovered at CERN isn't being revealed to us. Any of you that are good at remote viewing, that might be an interesting place to go look at some of what's going on behind the scenes. Things are shifting. Our whole physicality itself is shifting. It being a hologram and not really solid like it appears to be, this is really easy. And so, let me see. Okay, so I was speaking of carbon-7, and the link is to, it's called 2012 DNA Changes, Secrets of Carbon-7. And I have another one that you can click over to the transcript to see. All right, I see in this the beginnings of the new science, the one that will show us the science behind much of what we call miracles today. The miraculous is beautiful, and there is still mystery at the heart of everything, and I suspect always will be. Nonetheless, science can be a part of this, putting us more in the know, as they say, and less subject to manipulation, to the need for faith or belief. Now, I'd like to offer a caution along with this, a caution about believing in something just because it makes sense. That's dangerous. Simply that. Be in heart with me as we continue so you'll better grok or understand what is meant here. There is mind sense and logic, and there is heart sense, which is something quite different. What makes awesome sense to heart may be completely inexplicable to mind. Have you encountered that yet? If not, you will, since you're headed into higher consciousness, and it's just what you'll find along the way. We are unplugging from the 3D mind and from belief in thought. All belief in thought. Are you ready for that? You won't be if you haven't stepped back yet from mind, disidentified, realized you are not that. Most people, though they don't realize it, are addicted to mind, mostly the left brain part. It's where they spend all of their time, so it's where they are most comfortable. Without realizing it, they have identified with their mind. They've come to believe that they are the mind, again, without being aware. The simple test for this is to see how they react when their ideas are challenged. And just have a look at the comment threads on YouTube for plenty of evidence. People react badly when others simply disagree with them. You can note how they take this disagreement as a personal attack. They feel they have been attacked when it's only their thought, their idea, that's come into question. People are also afraid to change their beliefs, which amounts to their comfort zone. They don't want it disturbed. Now, again, this is identification with mind and with what it believes. We use our garden of belief to structure our reality, and then we believe it's what's real. We may think others are deranged or stupid or ignorant to believe in other ways. And again, that's evidence of being identified with mind and its beliefs. My message is to come away from that. Just step out of it. There's no need to conquer anything or to fight. Just walk away. Take 10 paces back, sit down, and have a look. From this new angle, things won't look the same, naturally. Your perspective has shifted, and things may look strange at first. You're out of your comfort zone. Now, you may well be beyond all of this. If you're living from heart, then chances are you went through something like this already, probably naturally, just following inner guidance or heart flow. Still, by looking at these things, you can come to better understanding of those around you. Maybe some who even frustrate you or give you some sort of hard time. Always remember, all change starts within. Trying to change others never work, in case you don't know that already. So, as sleeple or sheeple, we start out believing our thoughts. Largely addicted to left brain, yet without being self-aware. We don't know that we've identified with the mind, though we can see that we respond to challenges to our ideas as if they were challenges to the self. We may wish we were different, more in our own control, yet without self-awareness or self-knowledge, we're not in a position to fulfill our wish. Our attention is pointed outward instead of inward. Then somehow we start to wake up. Suddenly, things that used to mystify us, even things we look down on, maybe speakers like Eckhart Tolle or Muji or even David Icke, they suddenly start to make sense. Not to say we understand how or why that is so, but we seem to have a new sense, a new clarity, so that when we hear something, even something we may have heard 100 times, suddenly we just get it. At this point, it's a bit spooky for most of us. It's violating long-held beliefs and understandings of the way things work and what they mean. Suddenly, it's like a new window has opened, and we begin to see into a new world. That wouldn't be so scary by itself, except that the new world we happen to see is this one, the one we thought we understood. Blindly, oh how blindly we once believed our thoughts. We just knew we were right, and we knew others were wrong on certain things. Now, all of that comes into question at one time or another. We feel simply lost. It's as if we've been pulled up from our comfortable moorings and are adrift on a huge new sea. We don't know which way to turn or even what's going on. We're in transition. Now, that's simple enough, but we don't know it yet, so we generally make it a harder time than it needs to be. So much we haven't rediscovered yet of our own native knowledge. We don't even yet know we're divine, most of us. And some of us would punch you out if you tried to convince them of it, or laugh you down. So we ride along like that for a while, keeping it to ourselves all the time, making more changes, still not understanding how or why. We're frankly a mess for a while, and at some point we begin to realize it. We start to gain in self-awareness, though still largely focused on the world out there. We may fall for a few things along the way, at least trying them out. We're looking for solutions at this point. We think there's an answer to be found, and if we could just find it, could find someone who had this answer, suddenly things would all be made right within us. We'd be at peace. So we may follow this teacher, that guru, try out this or that practice. Many of us learn to meditate at some point along this way, or not. We don't yet know that none of this, simply none of it matters. To us, it still does. We're still searching, and you don't search unless you believe there's something to be found, and that you don't yet have it. So we search. When you get a cut or a scrape on the body, it heals itself, doesn't it? It's only natural. It's built right in. So it is with the inner being of woman and man. This awakening is far more natural than most of us realize. If we just back off and relax a good bit, we could let nature take its course. Be that as it may, it's the mind that's in fight mode all the way. It still must be convinced before we're willing to make change, and that makes life hard. Have you noticed? Plus, mind is unkind, as I've spoken on before, and I'll give you the link. If we weren't so outward focused all the time, we'd realize how very abusive mind tends to be. And we let it get away with that simply due to inattention, along with poor self-image and other such beliefs. As long as mind, in its current state, programmed state, remains even remotely in control, we'll have trouble. You might not have come to this conclusion yet, but many of us are so close to it. Once we dissociate from the mind sufficiently, we can finally stand back and observe the thing at work. We wise up to its many tricks and slick strategies, most of which are used to maintain control, either over others and more often over us. Yet, as long as we don't see that mind is separate from who and what we truly are, as long as we're identified with it, it's impossible to see this. It simply doesn't exist for us until we can step back. And this is Einstein's discovery that problems are not solved by remaining on their level. We must disidentify. What comes next? Well, hopefully we discover heart. We're beginning more and more to hear the voice of our own intuition, our inner tuition, and we tend to follow it more than we did before. That doesn't mean that we yet realize that it issues from heart. And do remember, please, I don't mean the organ or chakra. This is something not of 3D at all, this heart with the capital H. Whether we find our way into the inner kingdom, the kingdom of heart as I call it, or not, we're getting more and more intuitive, more and more sensitive to so many things. Our tastes are changing, as is the way we respond to many things. What once may have held a place of high importance to us may suddenly, from one day to the next, become all but meaningless, all without our understanding much at all. And I'm sure there are many blessed ones of us out there quietly thinking they've gone crazy. If you know one of them, give them a link to some of my work. Letting go is the key word during this time. Key 2 words. Our struggles and challenges are fewest the better we are at surrendering. Mostly what works best is to surrender attachment to people and things, as well as ideas, as thoughts. At some point, we tend to discover this for ourselves. We're doing a lot of reading or watching videos during this time, most of us, looking for something to help us make sense of it all. We're discovering, too, what resonates. This is so different than the way we functioned before. Before, things had to be logical. They had to pass certain mental tests before we'd be on board with them. Now things have changed, and we discover this new inner resonance thing. For many, or even most of us, it's very different than the way we worked before. Still, here's the thing. It feels so good. When something resonates in some strange way, we often know that it's true, or at least that it works for us. It just feels right. This is that new sixth or seventh sense developing, part of our new biology. The carbon-7 thing and other such changes may be behind what's going on. We don't know much of anything at this point. At what point did you suddenly come to realize that you didn't really know diddly squat? Are you there yet? Most of us in the light being community either have or soon will make this realization. We'll join Socrates at some point in simply knowing that all of our knowledge isn't really worth much. Mostly it just gets in the way of any real knowledge we're seeking, this whole waking up thing. So at some point we come into a certain openness to look at the whole emptiness thing, which may have quite baffled us before. It seemed like nonsense, or worse, yet suddenly it doesn't quite look that way anymore. Again and again we'll catch our self-talk saying, "How very strange this all is." The beauty during this time is our new openness. We're getting softer. We're discovering that so much of what was wrong with life wasn't wrong at all. It only seemed to be. And so much of what was wrong, too, was that we were fighting life, resisting. And this is a real shock to almost everyone, that they were, in effect, fighting with that which was. We just couldn't let things alone, couldn't accept them as they were. We had to change them, to reach out and control them in some way. Now, however, we're far enough along in our backing off from mind that we can see how that was mind at work. Mind was the one doing all of that, not really us, and yet we believed. As the pieces fall into place, we're seeing more and more of a bigger picture now. We may think it frightfully huge, this new picture, and I guess it's good at this point that we still haven't got a clue how truly big the picture will get to be. I'm guessing I've tapped into some of your journey thus far. How are you doing with that? Are you more and more able to step back from things and from fights or arguments, from hurts and misunderstandings? It's important to shift from reaction to response at some point. No more knee-jerk stuff. It's time to take things into heart first and then to respond, or maybe just stay silent and watch. I haven't mentioned how important it is just to watch and observe yet. Most people aren't ready for that for some time. As long as mind has a hold on us, it keeps our focus outward turned. It isn't mind we use to do this watching, though. Why not? How can mind watch itself? It doesn't work. Just recall the Einstein quote to know why. Thus, we must first put mind in its place, its secondary place, and get it out of leadership, of control. Heart knows how to watch. Heart even knows how to just be. It's at this point that we are ripe to turn our focus toward the self. It helps to know that all change comes only from within. Yet we all have to bang our heads against a certain number of brick walls trying to make outer change before we're ripe to discover another way. Have you come that far? Maybe farther? I'm hoping that more and more of us will start sharing what it's like to be us, our inner path, as I do here. Just as you may have found something of worth in these journals, surely you know that the very same source that inspires them is also who and what you are. We all bring something both awesomely special and unique to the table, into the fray here in 3D. We're all source beams. We've only got to come to remember that, and that's where most of us are at this point. We're shifting from thinking we were just these human vessels or vehicles we've been driving around for so many lifetimes, or embodiments. We're coming into our own, and when we do, everything changes big time. This is no small stuff we're involved in, and we know it. It's simply too huge for the human 3D part of us to contain or comprehend. And thank God we're not that, or not just that, not limited to only that. As source beams, we're multidimensional and quite unlimited. We've all got some belief gardening work to do, friends. Let's not any one of us get the big head and begin to call the self enlightened. Watch out for that stuff. The minute you take a few steps back and see, you'll see how it's only mind doing that. And this is what's called the enlightened ego. And you don't want to waste any time with it. Look around at some of the teachers out there and you'll see this in action. Be on the alert. Watching, just observing is your best friend along the way. It's the way you maintain your heart seat for the ride, the way you go with the flow. And when you catch yourself saying or doing something you'd rather not have, turn around and look at the self. Take a few steps back. Look for evidence of mind's intrusion. It's not a small thing, taking back all belief in our thoughts. Yet we can do it. It helps so much to know these sorts of things, doesn't it? I don't know about you, but I find it really useful. And so that's why all of the sharing here. May you be abundantly, awesomely blessed, my friends, my other selves. Namaste.